strike on UAW corruption. Let's bring in Curtis Ellis. He was the labor union liaison on President Trump's transition team. Curtis, nobody knows the UAW better than the Detroit News. That they spend a lot of their time investigating them. They say, look, you have auto workers losing $1,000 a week. GM is losing up to $100 million a day on this. And it's all because the UAW is trying to cover up its problems with corruption. What do you say?
Well, David, that's a very interesting thought, and it's one that I've heard from people inside the labor union movement. They said, isn't it convenient? This is a nice distraction for the leaders of the UAW who are under fire for this corruption.
By the way, we should just mention there are 11 union leaders, UAW union leaders, who have been indicted so far, and there are also investigations going into the very top of the UAW right now.
Right. But let me say that this is another example of the split between the leadership and the rank and file. We saw in 2016 that the union members voted for Donald J. Trump while the leadership endorsed Hillary Clinton. And this further exacerbates the split between the rank and file and the leadership. And if this strike does not end well for the union, if it drags out too long, if it causes too much pain and they get not a very good contract at the end, that will again be blamed on the union leadership. There's a lot at stake here for the union leadership as well as for the president, because the action here is in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, states he needs to win.
And Texas, as we just saw.
Yes, but there's obviously most of the UAW members, and the big striking is going on in those industrial states around the Great Lakes. So the president is hitting the right note. Notice, as your correspondent just told us, one of the big issues is Mexico. Jobs going to Mexico, plants going to Mexico. The president, you heard him yesterday saying, I don't want to see GM building factories in Mexico. Right. So he is taking the side of the UAW.
But the question is whether the UAW leadership is different from the membership, and whether the leadership is so concerned about their own corruption problems that they are dumping all of their problems on the membership. I mean, they're losing $1,000 a week. It's very tough. So can the president come out, support the union members, and condemn the union leadership for what they're doing if the Detroit News is right on this? Well,
by taking the side of the workers and taking the side of America, I want jobs in America, I want GM in America, he's doing exactly what you're saying, David. And this could be very interesting. He could come out on top again, no pun intended, trumping the leadership. So we'll see here how this comes out, but the stakes could not be higher for everyone involved, the workers, the union leaders, and the president, because if this doesn't come out well for the president, if he is able to get GM to reopen some of these plants in America, that's great for him. If this doesn't happen, and if he is perceived as siding with GM, which I don't see that happening, there goes those critical states.
Yeah, and by the way, he keeps emphasizing the fact that GM still owes taxpayers over, over $11 billion?
$11 billion from that bailout.
From the short sale,
yeah. It's and he could hit on that too. There's many points that the president could hit on. Everybody wants to be a fly on the wall. That meeting that he had with Mary Barra in the Oval Office last week. We'd like to know what happened there.
I assume we will eventually. Curtis Ellis, thank you very much for being here. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Well, the Journal reporting that the UAW strike could cost GM about $100 million a day. Joining us now is market watcher D.R. Barton. You don't live too far from the Wilmington, Delaware GM plant, right? So, I mean, how's it affecting people in the region?
Well, in fairness, that plant has already closed.
Oh,
it's one that has closed in the past. I live about 10 miles from there, about 3 miles from a Chrysler plant that's closed also in the last 10 years. And that has a huge impact.
How many people lost their jobs as a result of
about
those?
3,000.